Your Excellency, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Mama Dorcas, Mama Boyce, welcome to Kansas City. And then the rest of the Kansas City crew, all protocols observed. Good evening. It's an act of great honor and privilege to be standing in front of you to speak. And first of all, I would like to welcome Honorable Rigathi Gachagua for coming in our midst under a very tight schedule. Welcome to Kansas City. And one thing I would like to say is I got to hear about Rigathi Gachagua, of course, during the 2022 elections. But one thing that stood out is that he has over time demonstrated that he is a once-in-a-lifetime personality. We will never have another person like Rigathi Gachagua. And here's why I say this. I say this because he joined Parliament around 2017. And within 5 to 6 years, he had already become DP. And one of what stands out from that is that he's a man of great focus, that once he puts his eyes on a focus, he goes for it. And I think that brought out some kind of jealousy within the higher echelons of Kenya's political establishment. And they ended up ganging against him and tried to stop him. And I'll explain this in terms of international geopolitics. You all know that within the great games of power around the world, whenever a nation is emerging to develop a nuclear weapon, all the great powers will come up and try to stop that person from acquiring the nuclear weapon. And here's why. Because once you acquire a nuclear weapon, you're almost untouchable. So at the time when whoever he was standing against was beginning to be jealous, is when he was about to truly consolidate his base. And they knew that from that point on, there was no turning back. He was going to spread his tentacles across the nation. And he had to be stopped from coming to the high table. And that's why we watched in horror and sadness around November of 2024 when the whole system, the whole state machinery was unleashed on the person of Rigathi Gachagua. He was the duly elected Deputy President of Kenya, democratically elected. But what happened on that day was an attempt to overturn the democratic will of the Kenyan people. You might have left office, but you remain the people's Deputy President to date. Another thing I would like to say is I got to know about Kasongo probably when I was about 14 years old. And I will tell you, among my type of leaders, right from the age of 14, I was a very avid reader of the newspaper. I knew he was like in the same WhatsApp group like Makto or Nicholas B. Watt. What you're seeing today is a clear demonstration of what a Nicholas B. Watt president would have looked like. And who among you would have voted for Nicholas B. Watt? Nobody, right? That's exactly, whatever you are seeing right now is exactly a continuation of what would have become of a nuclear B. Watt presidency. Another thing I would like to debunk is this myth, a state-orchestrated propaganda machinery that is out to paint the person of Rigathi Gachagua as a tribalist. He is not. And I will explain to you what's happening. So Rigathi Gachagua rose to the high echelons very quickly. I mean, from just being a mere member of parliament for Madeira, then very quickly becomes deputy president. You know, these people did not know what to do. But then at that level of political operation, the greatest priority is to consolidate your base. Raila Odinga did it around 1997 when Raila first ran for president and emerged a distant third. He emerged with about 700,000 votes. And that was about consolidating his base. And around that time, if you can remember, he was involved in running battles with people like James Orengo at that time. You know, and most of that theater of operation was in Nyanza. So, and then let's think about the person of Kasongo. Kasongo came into national prominence when he was in ODM. And how he emerged as the kingpin in his region was to proclaim that Kalenjins were being kicked out of Mau Forest. A very, you know, like you're trying to preserve the Mau Forest, which feeds water into Lake Victoria, but here's somebody saying that my community is being targeted. And then he said a bunch of ethnic things. Tribalism, speaking your own mother tongue is not a bad thing. It becomes bad if it leads to the burning of, or poisoning, carbon monoxide poisoning of humanity inside a church. It becomes bad. It becomes evil if you're going to be found liable by a court of law for looting 100 acres of Adrian Muteshi. Okay? If you guys follow news, you know what I'm talking about. At the height of 2007 clashes, you know, somebody went and grabbed Adrian Muteshi's land. A court ruling is on record about that. So that is what tribalism is. But they won't tell you. They will go ahead and unleash the entire state machinery, sponsor some chokora bloggers to go around calling people tribalists. But we know what exactly is going on. Now, regardless of what you think of Rigathi Gachagua, he is currently the voice of the voiceless. And regardless of what you think about him, you might disagree with him. But one thing I would like to tell you about democracy is the center of power has to be checked. He is the counterweight that we have. The rest of the opposition, yes, we have people, but he is the core. So you have to listen to what he says and try to support him in that journey of liberating the Kenyan people. Again, you might disagree with him. You might disagree with him, but give him the grace, okay? Because he's at this time the custodian and the guardian of our democracy. Eventually I know whatever happened in November 2024 might affect whether he runs or not, and that is up to the courts to decide. But I would urge you, Mr. Deputy President, whoever you eventually support should also agree and believe about your right to being innocent until proven guilty. There might be people, whoever you eventually support should be a person who believes that you're innocent until proven guilty and is also equally willing to fight for you with a clean heart, with a determination to get you come out of those tentacles. So it should be a person who truly also has that reciprocity. It should be a person who in their privacy also prays that you hopefully be on the ballot. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.